What's going on, guys? We're back, man. Hey, a quick shout out before we even go anywhere. Thank you guys so much, man. Lately, you guys have just been tons of comments, sharing the videos, likes, really, really positive stuff in the comments. So, thank you, man. I genuinely think we're making a difference. Even though this is a smaller channel, man, there is, I think we're bringing a lot of information to people who need to see it. And it's real straightforward, just the truth, the stuff that people need to see. All right, giving the people what they want. All right, I'm just playing. Hey, I found a few different videos, man. I talked about recently how there's a change in the tide of what's happening here in Ukraine. There's a shift in pressure. It feels like we hit a tipping point almost, where the balance of power was kind of like this, more so leaning towards Russia, and then lately it's been like this, almost leaning towards Ukraine. And in my experience, in the 3 years that I've been in Ukraine, this is the first time I've seen an actual significant change of power, if you will, with the exception of our invasion into Kursk in 2024, which was really cool. But that was kind of a flash in the pan. But shout out to those guys, man, holding the line for fucking 8 months is crazy in enemy territory. Anyways, before we jump into it, I found a few different things. We got video from Magyar's Birds, dude. I'm on 100 right now. I'm firing off. Let me jack it down. Namaste. We got a new video from Magyar's Birds coming up, and I found a couple other news articles with footage intermingled just to kind of back my point of there's a power shift happening right now. Last thing, then we're going to jump into it, okay? In yesterday's video, I told you guys about, I showed you a video, this video here.
Hello everyone from Different Breed. My name is John from Sweden. This is Patrick from Norway. We've been in Ukraine for 4 years now. We are transitioning into drones and we're taking drone classes right now, and we need your help. We are launching a fundraiser for controllers, ground station cables, antennas and goggles. We're very thankful for all you guys' help up until this point. It means a lot to us. And a lot of the work we've been doing down here wouldn't be possible without you guys' help. So we truly appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. And Slava Ukraini! Героям слава!
Like they said, this is John and Patrick. They've been here for a long time doing the Lord's work out here in Ukraine, and they need our help. Something that's really cool about supporting a brand new team like this is you get to see your actual funds in use and see there's tangible evidence that your funds are actually doing something on the front line. So if you're willing and able, I'm going to leave their email to their PayPal in the description below and in the pinned comments. And I'm also going to ask John and Patrick for some cool footage and stuff once they get up and running, and we'll have like exclusives maybe, and I'll show you guys what your money is doing. So, all right, before we jump straight into that stuff, I wanted to show you guys this, because this is also part of why I'm saying there's a power shift, because you guys already know your Majesty, Your Honor, Your Highness, King Charles came into Congress and just dropped some bombs talking about we need to help Ukraine, quit being bitches. And something interesting here, if you don't know already, the Secretary of Defense, Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, is asking Congress for 1.5 trillion, I believe, in defense and military funding. I don't think there's never been an ask like that to Congress before. It's very big. Whether you support that or not, it's up to you. I support the United States military, so I'm like, give them what the hell they want. But our boy here asks some pretty good questions. So I fast forwarded it. Let's just watch.
One of the factors of this budget that hasn't gotten any publicity
This budget he's talking about is the 1.5 trillion.
is there's zero funding for Ukraine. That's correct, isn't it, Mr. Hurst?
That's correct. There's no USAI funding in this budget.
And there was 400 million that was appropriated last year by a bipartisan, bicameral act of Congress. What's become of that money? My understanding is not a dollar of it has been dispersed.
It was released very recently, and again, we got these funds, I believe, in March. and it takes time for funds to flow through the department, but it's going to get put to work very shortly. We're going to work with the UCOM commander to make sure we use these funds in the most appropriate way possible.
I didn't want Senator Sullivan to be the only one with an exhibit. This indicates what's happened to our support for Ukraine over a period of years. The orange bars are U.S. support. The blue bars are Europe, as you see.
Let's look at this real quick. You guys know I always tell you I am extremely biased, man. I love Ukraine. I've been here. I've fought here. I've lost friends that I consider family to be here. I've even brought some of my own friends and family out here to Ukraine. This is my home now. I brought my cats, dude. Come on. So I appreciate you guys coming to me for your most biased news source and pro-Ukrainian news source, okay? You're not going to get anything else from me. And most of you guys know that. So this is interesting. We've been talking about this for a while. So the blue is support from the United States over the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. The blue is the support from Europe in the last 8 years. Orange is the support from the United States. Now, a lot of people, the United States, especially during the last presidential administration, was donating a lot to Ukraine. And a lot of people thought that it was just mountains higher than the amount that Europe was giving. But this shows otherwise. So let's look. In the initial start of the war, 2022, United States, I would say, had a pretty decent majority over the amount that they were giving to this is military aid, excuse me, I'm sorry. So this is over the last 4 years. I said 8 years. 4 years, and it's split in half. This is financial aid. This is military aid. So here we can see military aid by far, well, not by far, but a majority was the United States. They took the majority of that in 2022. They donated more than anybody else. 2023 evens out a bit here. You tell me what you think on that one. Is Europe or US? 2024, drastically Europe. 2025, there is no support from the United States. It's all Europe. And they don't even bother putting 2026 on there, even though we're 4 months into 2026, because it's been zero from the United States. So this is really important information to lock down. And I'm so glad that, there are people in the Senate, in Congress that are speaking up about this stuff. They're like, hey, Hegseth, you're asking for $1.5 trillion right now because of the munitions you've expended in Iran. Can we chip off some that we already promised the Ukrainians and give them what we already promised them, their $400 million, right? He's not even asking for additional to the Ukrainians, just what was already promised to them last year in a bipartisan, both sides of the aisle, Republicans and Democrats voted on, saying, yes, let's send them this money. Okay, is there anything else on that one? That might be it.
Europe is 99% in the year 2026. Same thing with humanitarian and other aid to Ukraine. And yet this is, I believe, an existential struggle for the future of democracy, where we had an aggressive country invade a neighboring country without any justification whatsoever. And by the way, that invading country is the major winner so far of the war in Iran. They've gotten, the estimates are $40 to $80 billion of additional revenues from oil and the relief of sanctions as a result of the war in Iran. Secretary Hegseth, why are we abandoning Ukraine?
Senator, if you would hold that chart back up,
Yep.
I think that's a beautiful chart. I think that's exactly what we want. We want Europe stepping up and funding and shouldering the burden. They are rich countries worth $20 trillion versus an economy of $2 trillion. Europe can step up, Europe can fund it, and they have through our Pearl Initiative and through our European Command. That's exactly what the American people want to see, is other countries stepping up and funding that. If it's that important to Europe, which I understand why it is, and the incursion of
that he was very close there to losing me as a Hegseth somewhat fan, okay? When he said, if it's that important to Europe, what is humanity and freedom that important? It should be to the world. Okay, I just wanted to say here, I do agree with Hegseth to this point. I think this was supposed to be his like mic drop statement. Like, I think that's a perfect example of what we want. We want Europe stepping up. European nations have been, especially NATO countries, have been riding off the coattails of the United States for years, especially when it comes to defense industry stuff or global defense. But that doesn't mean the United States just gets to dip out and then send all the money to, in my opinion, send all the money to Israel because Israel wants help. If we're going to help one, we should help the other. And if not, tell us why. It's so much more important. The Israelis are so much more important than the Ukrainians.
Russia and the bravery of the Ukrainians, then European countries should pay for it. And that's exactly what that chart says. And that's the administration policy.
So we don't have any interest in what happens in Ukraine. Is that what you're saying? It's only the Europeans?
I'm saying the threat is far closer to rich and capable countries in Europe, and they should step up to lead the charge. And that's why that chart is a good thing to see.
They have stepped up. But I think the American people should understand that we've stepped back. In fact, stepped back to the point of abandoning.
This is a war that never would have happened under President Trump, and he supports
So tired of hearing this bullshit, dude. Shut up.
ending it through a deal, and he's pursued that.
So far, it hasn't happened.
I mean, so tired, Hegseth. Stop. One of the reasons I still like Hegseth is because it seems like he's still willing to stand on his own, like stand 10 toes down. He's not as brainwashed by the administration, I think, as some of the other people in the cabinet. I still think Hegseth he sincerely believes that what's happened and what they're doing in Iran is for the greater good, and he's sticking to it. And so I respect that. Whether you believe that or not, whether I believe that or not, it is what it is. He believes it, he's sticking to it. Okay, you do you, man. At least he's not completely brainwashed. But when he says something like this, it never would have been started if Trump were president. Come on, dude. That to me is like, okay, maybe he is brainwashed.
I'm at a time I want to talk about DTOs.
All right, so we can move on here, you guys. This is Magyar's Birds here, but I'm very curious what you guys think about some of this stuff that's happening, because this has been the first time, I'll say, since Trump took office in this recent term, that we have actually seen support coming through through some of the major political houses, the Senate, Congress. We're starting to see people speak up more, and it's really cool to see. So I want to hear what you guys think about this. So, all right, about that. This is Magyar's Birds, right? We've talked about them. They are doing the Lord's work right now. They have somehow figured out how to get FPV drones deep into enemy territory, and they're hitting some of the most priority targets that by we I mean Ukraine has not been able to touch since 2014, since the initial invasion of Donbass and the annexation of Crimea. I want to show you real quick. This is we're going to see footage from strikes in Bakhmut and in Donetsk City. Before we watch that, look at where Donetsk City is. This is Deep State Maps. Donetsk. Okay, right here, the red outlined one. So the purple shaded area is what Russia took in 2014 illegally. Okay, and you can see down here Crimea as well. So this was that invasion. The red is what they have managed to do in the last 4.5 years. Okay. It's really nothing. I mean, it is something. Obviously, there's a lot of Ukrainian lives lost there, foreigner lives, civilian lives. But my point is, in 4.5 years, dude, Russia's only been able to do this. Not a good look on Putin. Anyways, so let's take a look. Donetsk City has been a stronghold and a safe zone for Russia since 2014. And let's pull out our little ruler guy here. Let's go center of Donetsk to the gray zone. Almost 70 kilometers in the way. Almost 70 kilometers here. 68.94. That is a distance, dude. Even with some of the largest fiber optic cable spools that I've seen personally, 40 to 50 kilometers were the furthest an FPV drone could go. And that was still sketchy because there's so much land where this wire, this fiber optic cable could get caught, can get snapped, could get intercepted somehow. That's why I think we've got a different system going on now. They're doing something different. But this is huge, dude. Being able to strike this deep into a hub that is supplying the majority of what I'll say that is the the Donbass front line. Um, they probably have different logistical hubs up here for Luhansk, and same down here in like the Zaporizhia area. But at least for Donbass front line here, this is a big deal, and the fact that we're able to hit that, man, that's huge. So this is another example of that power shift happening. Sorry guys, I put these little nicotine pouches in and one of them popped on me. So big radar systems. The fact that we're able to hit this stuff, dude. Now Ukraine's been able to do some deep drone strikes with some of the fixed wing drones that we've seen in the past. Even some of like their homemade Shahed style, but nothing with FPVs this deep. So this is why I'm so stoked about this, for one, but two, so surprised, man, because it seems like something just in the last few weeks has happened to where Ukraine has figured out how to get these FPVs deep into enemy territory. For all I know, there's some DRG groups or deep reconnaissance groups way behind enemy lines setting up drone ground stations. I have no idea, dude. That would be super sketchy, but who knows? This is very clearly, that was like a hub for their armored vehicles. You can see MRAPs with cages in there, or MRAP style vehicles. Part of what I think is so interesting about, interesting about this, is that you could tell how caught off guard the Russians were. There are very few defenses, and there's no drone nets. There's very few REB systems, like electronic warfare systems. It's just been a safe zone. They weren't prepared for this. And we've seen Magyar's birds and First Corps Azov drone teams completely exploiting this vulnerability. These were all from yesterday, dude. So sick. Hold on. There's some more. I saw there was one headline that popped up about Russians being forced to eat their comrades because of their logistics and supply lines are so chopped they can't get food. But I was like, I don't even know, dude. That's pretty dark. I don't know if I can even talk about that on here. So, but this one says drones crush expensive Russian armored vehicles in mass. Trenches don't save tanks either.
The experience of the Ukrainian war has shown Western militaries how large, multi-year conflicts can deplete their reserves of tanks and armored vehicles, and why combat robots may be more important in the long term. This was stated by Oleg Fedoroshin, a Ukrainian manufacturer of ground robots and the director of research and development at the Ukrainian Robotic Systems.
Let me pause. I've been saying this since the beginning of this year. Actually, at the end of last year, I said, I think 2026 is going to be the year of UGVs, unmanned ground vehicles. Basically just ground robots, ground drones. If I had my, if I had some big bank account with a bunch of money put away, I would have found the leading Ukrainian companies or any kind of war tech companies I could buy stock in that were making UGVs, and I would have put it all on black, dude, because That's exactly what's happening right now. Their ground vehicles are the new name of the game. 2025, 2024 was FPV central. FPV is still extremely, it's still dominant. It's still probably the number one um, issue on the front line. But UGVs are coming in hot.
Manufacturer DevDroid, in a comment to Business Insider. Drones in the war in Ukraine have humiliated tanks and changed the rules of the game. Now the sides are rethinking how to adapt to the new realities of modern warfare. Early in the war, commanders often hid their tanks and other armored vehicles by digging trenches and camouflaging them. They would then emerge to fire on the enemy when they attempted to attack. But today, it is nearly impossible to hide from drones. The Business Insider writes that in a protracted and costly conflict, the sheer volume of equipment needed to perform tasks ranging from combat operations to logistics can make the use of expensive armored vehicles like tanks impractical. Thus, the war in Ukraine has highlighted the need for larger quantities of cheaper, expendable systems, inexpensive and easily replaceable assets that armed forces can fall back on when more traditional assets are damaged or destroyed. Ukraine has a huge amount of cheap weaponry. Many of its inexpensive drones fail to reach their targets or have no significant impact, but they are deployed on such a scale that they are still capable of destroying much more expensive systems. High losses are expected and generally acceptable because they are cheap and can be quickly replaced, the article states. The war demonstrated how easily tanks and other armored vehicles can be destroyed with artillery and cheap drones. Drones costing hundreds of dollars destroyed tanks costing millions. Tanks have adapted, acquiring new armor and new tactics, but remain at risk. Ground robots are not a perfect replacement for tanks and armored vehicles, and Western armies are unlikely to completely replace these traditional assets. These vehicles have greater power to traverse difficult terrain, provide much better protection for critical assets that must be transported across the battlefield, and can carry out much larger and more effective attacks. However, ground robots can take on some functions while still providing greater safety for humans. They can attack positions using explosives or mounted weapons such as machine guns and grenade launchers. They can also deliver supplies to the front lines. Ukraine is increasing its use of ground robots. Fedorshin stated that his company can quickly update and repair its robots, in part thanks to teams constantly on the front lines to quickly repair damage or perform rapid system upgrades. This allows for same-day repairs and even the recovery of damaged robots from the battlefield. It's worth noting that recently, reports have been recurring about ground-based systems being used increasingly autonomously, even replacing infantry. Specifically, the first successful assault on Russian positions using unmanned ground vehicles and drones has already been reported. Defense Minister Mikhail Fyodorov believes that in the future, 100% of frontline logistics should be handled by such systems. He noted that in March, the NRCs completed 9,000 missions.
It's really cool, dude. And full disclosure, man, I certainly hope that's the case. I hope that all possible human life can be, or all human life can be replaced by these autonomous systems or semi-autonomous systems and do the work of the infantry or the sappers or whoever it is, right? I believe that there's always going to be a need for infantrymen. Maybe that's becoming less and less and less, and I do hope that's the case. Being infantry here in Ukraine is what nightmares are made of, straight up. So I would love to see that. But something that my brain goes to anytime I see new drone tech is being a combat medic. It's how this can affect combat medicine, how it could affect or my job when I was in the field. And something like these, let me preface it by saying this. Casualty evacuation, at least in Middle East GWAT era war tactics, used to be if you could not figure out a casualty evacuation plan, that was a non-starter. You would not go on mission, from my understanding, right? I was never in those battlefields. I was not in those militaries, but from my understanding, for many people that were, you wouldn't even consider going on a mission unless there was a solid plan for casualty evacuation, whether that was Black Hawks or Bradleys or whatever, MRAPs, whatever it was. Here in Ukraine, you have to just come to terms with the fact that you will not have a casualty evacuation plan. It's common knowledge now. Earlier on in the war, 2023, early 2024, 2022, obviously, this was more doable. You could get ATVs and hook sleds up to them, and they still try to do some of that stuff out here now, but we've all seen the horrors of them doing that. So fast forwarding to mid 24, 2025, 2026, there is no casualty evacuation. It literally comes down to if the soldiers are trained enough to be able to stabilize the casualty, if the casualty is even in a position to be stabilized, and if the infantry or the assault team, whoever it is, the personnel on the ground can, by foot, extract this soldier without getting the rest of the team killed. It's a nightmare. So we've seen these UGVs start to play that role. They'll send in one of these UGVs to a location where the friendly unit is and where they're stabilizing that casualty. They'll load the casualty up on the UGV and send it. Now, it's not a foolproof plan, right? If a FPV sees that thing, it's probably going to go try to take out the UGV and kill the injured soldier inside. But it's better than getting the injured soldier and 4 or 5 people that were trying to also carry him, right? Which we've seen multiple times happen. That's a big deal. And a couple months ago, I went to this drone conference in Lviv, and they're talking about these aerial drones, basically almost like a vampire style drone. But I believe instead of a hexacopter, they're quadcopters, but they're big propellers, big rotors. And you could strap up a casualty underneath it like a helicopter, send it up, and it would fly your casualty back to a safe zone. That idea scares the hell out of me, but if they were able to come up with a solid way of that working, that could be a game changer too, man. All right, what do we got here? Oh, okay, and this was the Su-57 and Su-34 jets taken down.
Ukrainian armed forces have struck a Su-57 and a Su-34 fighter bombers at the Shagul Air Base in Russia's Chelyabinsk region, located about 1,700 kilometers from Ukraine's state border, the General Staff of Ukrainian Armed Forces reported on Friday. The attack was carried out on April 25. Ukrainian unmanned systems forces reportedly hit several Sukhoi Su-57 fighter jets as well as a Sukhoi Su-34 aircraft. The extent of the damage is still being clarified. There has been no official statement from the Kremlin about the incident.
Are those next-gen fighters, guys? We got a lot of jet heads in the chat, so let me know. I don't know much about fighter jets, but they look next-gen the way their bodies are.
However, a Telegram channel close to the Russian Aerospace Forces, fighter bomber, confirmed damage to a Su-57 aircraft following a strike on the Aktubinsk Air Base in Russia's Astrakhan region. The airfield in Aktubinsk came under a drone attack yesterday. 3 UAVs made it through. A Su-57 sustained shrapnel damage, and it is now being determined whether it can be repaired or not. If it cannot, this would be the first combat loss of a Su-57 in history, the channel's author wrote. Earlier this morning, Ukraine's main intelligence directorate, known as HUR, reported damage to a Su-57 and published satellite images showing blast craters and characteristic burn marks caused by the strike. Ukraine has stepped up long-range strikes on Russian military targets in occupied parts of the country and deep in Russian territory.
So cool. All right, so it's just more footage of that. That's it, guys. I mean, this was more of a... Oops. Okay. Sorry. I've been doing more of these narration style videos where I'll talk over some of the footage, and you guys have just been seeming to love it, man. So thank you for that. with the exception of, you know, the one or two people who are like, shut up, we want to see more heads explode, stop talking. Most of you guys are pretty, you like what I'm doing. So thank you guys for that. If you're willing and able to help out John and Patrick, their PayPal email will be in the description below and in the pinned comment, and Discord link in description, merch, all that stuff. You guys, I love you. See you in the next video.